The next topic I'm going to talk about is integrations and bots. I want to talk a little bit, in some of these, some of this may be a little technical, but I also want to get you to think through and be creative in terms of what is possible, because this is so new within really the work environment. And Facebook has been using it for many years in various forms. But within most companies, they're not really used to using social media really as a platform. So I think basically the opportunities here and where companies are going to go to, it is really going to change how companies operate. So integrations have been there in workplace since the beginning. They have kept refining the quality of the APIs and what you can do through all these APIs. And bots was released only last April. So it's only been out in workplace for, 5 months? So it is definitely not something that's been around for many years. So this is a constantly evolving thing. I've identified probably about 25, 30 different bots that are available right now. There's lots of integrations that's already is available, like the identity providers, security and archiving. I'll talk a little bit about some of those. Conferencing, some of the better analytics, the Facebook analytics that you can do is somewhat limited. There are some statistics and such you can run, but there are other plugins that you can use to get a much better grasp on how the interaction, the communication is happening within a company to better be able to understand and to see what changes you may want to do. The file storage like Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, etc. There are the bots, I think basically probably every week there are new bots being released that basically can be either purchased or leveraged. Some of them may be free, but many companies are also building bots internally that are using Workplace. The development of bots is not necessarily so complicated. It's a fairly simple technology. So let me touch on this a little bit more. This is one of the ones that we use every week, is Blue Jeans conferencing. So with Blue Jeans, it's another, I don't know, anyone use Blue Jeans internally? Or WebEx? It's similar to WebEx. It's another conferencing system. But Blue Jeans basically integrates with Facebook. So when you do a video conference or a conference call on Blue Jeans, you can now stream that, for example, within the group. So let's say you have your weekly sales team meeting. You're talking about opportunities, etc., what the sales were in your weekly call. By streaming it on to Workplace within that group, then now whoever missed that meeting or couldn't join, they can now jump in and actually see the actual video call and the discussion that happened onto Workplace. So this is another kind of example where group structure is very important. You can stream it. The other advantage, Facebook has unlimited storage. So you don't have to worry about overloading the server. I think I used to use Cisco or WebEx in many companies. WebEx storage, particularly for video, fills up extremely fast. And basically it's very costly. Whereas here, it's unlimited. You have no limits. It goes onto the Facebook data centers. Another one, which to me is really interesting, is this additional analytics. So with Swoop, it collects additional information from Workplace and puts this into a series of various measures that you can use and have a dashboard on to understand how what the collaboration or engagement is within the company. So this is another example of where Swoop is using the APIs that are available for Workplace, putting this into Swoop, doing the analytics, and having the dashboards. One of the interesting things is the sentiment analysis and trends. Are people stressed? Are people happy? Are people upset? Based on some of the feedback, they actually can get a fairly good indication of what the sentiment is within the company. And by doing this, because implementing Workplace, really the value is that it's actually being used. If you just implement it, it sits there, somebody really just logs in once in a while, it really is not going to pay off. The real payoff is when it's actually being really leveraged at a high volume. So by using Swoop, you can also identify maybe areas, maybe you made a mistake, maybe we need to create some other groups, maybe we need to do some more marketing within the company to get the onboarding better. So there are many ways you can analyze the data to see what changes that you may need to make to be able to improve. Okay. Particularly for financial institutions, there are a couple. I think you mentioned also there's a new one, but they're not official yet. But there are several that's so there are more coming. But cloud access security brokers, two of them, SkyHigh and Netscope. We're working with Netscope on one project. What these guys do is they can monitor Workplace, make sure that what is being posted and what is being pushed onto Workplace is within compliance. So for example, one of the things you probably don't want to do, because Workplace is not going to prevent you, an employee from doing that. Same thing that an email, you can put whatever you want in the email and hit the send button. So if you don't want customer credit card numbers and expiration dates and the 3-digit code to be posted on Workplace, then these companies can help detect or even prevent those posts from being pushed onto Workplace. Right? So within financial institutions, you can basically identify those and then basically prevent those posts from going in. These type of companies are not just focused on Workplace. They can also do the same thing for Dropbox or other cloud providers to basically control, better enforce basically the company policy onto the various cloud platforms that you may be using. Another one, which I think you were kind of interested in, was around e-discovery and archive. There are two companies right now, Smarsh and Disco, which basically can retrieve the data. Not just, these companies, again, they're not just for Workplace. They can do the same thing for many of the other applications as well. So for example, it could be emails, shared drives like Dropbox or internal drives, internet locations. It could be even social media and many other places where you may store information. These applications can basically suck this data in, archive it, and you can do analytics on it. So the example you mentioned earlier about deleting something, if you delete it, this application would still have it. Okay. And this not only includes what you put on Workplace, but include also what you do within WorkChat, because everything you do on Workplace, it is not owned by you as an individual. It is not your personal transactions or posts. It is owned by the company. Just like email. When you leave a company, they are not going to delete your email. They can read everything. I think you touched on some of these already. Jira, used for task and issue management. A lot of IT, a lot of projects use Jira. Salesforce, you showed one. There's several Salesforce integrations that are available. ServiceNow, Zendesk, all of those integrations are also available. And this is so new and evolving that basically, by the time we save this presentation, it's already getting kind of old. So probably next week there will be some new ones that's already out. So it's hard to keep these PowerPoint presentations up to date. The next one I want to touch on is bots. So like I said, bots was released in April during F8 of this year, so about 5 months ago. Bots, and I think you saw some of the demos from Anthony, in terms of it can be both used within groups or posts, and it can also be used in chat. So it can be it's not just where you are calling a bot, it can also be where the bot is calling you. One of the key differences between a bot in Workplace and a bot on Messenger is in Messenger, you need to give authority, you need to approve that the bot can contact you. Like if you connect to CNN bot, then you have to agree that CNN can push you information. Whereas in Workplace, it is already inherent. Because it's part of work, if I'm a bot, let's say I'm the HR bot, and your performance reviews has not been submitted, the HR bot could contact you and tell you it's due, or you're past due, without you approving that. So, I mean, I am a evangelist to say where I really think that this can change how a company operates. And the traditional way of emails, phone, and in many cases unsecure consumer applications like WhatsApp, it's secure to some extent, but you have no authority over that data, or you as a company basically don't know what communication is happening on WhatsApp because it's not traceable. Whereas on Workplace, it is you own the data. Every chat message that you do on Workplace is owned by you. I have worked on many enterprise applications. They are not always the most user-friendly and easy-to-use applications. So, something like getting a status of an invoice out of SAP can be a very time-consuming and complex process. And then you have a variety of mobile apps that some have, some don't have. So in general, the more traditional way of extracting or communicating within a company can be somewhat slow and complex. And basically things are not done so fast. So I'll go through some examples and show you. So by using bots, which are integrated with some of your enterprise applications, then the user interface and the user experience in dealing with that internally are just so much easier and so much faster. So I'll get to some of the questions. So this bot here it's called the repair bot. The repair bot, it's so fast that I can't talk to it at the same time, so I'm talking in advance. The repair bot basically is a bot that keeps track of who is on duty to potentially fix equipment in a factory. So in this example, the factory worker has identified a problem with a machine, and he posts on Workplace, takes a picture of the machine, says, I need this fixed, and calls the bot. The bot calls, figures out who is on call, pings him on Messenger. The person on call says, I'll be right there, and comes right back. So it's a process that, you may, in the current process, you may log a ticket. It may take a long time to get that done, where using this bot, it can now actually be done within minutes. A little slow in the beginning. So here the person logs into the Menlo Park factory group and basically writes extremely fast on what the problem is and calls the repair bot and asks someone to find them available. Takes a picture and posts it. So now that's within that group. Now the bot pings, responds back, says I'm working on it, and pings the person that's currently on call. So this is the person that responds who's on call, says I'm on it. Now the bot basically goes back to Workplace, posts, and says so-and-so is coming, Isaac. So now as an employee, I pushed I posted this, and within a minute, I have an answer on who is coming to work on it. Okay. So I think, bots are not really meant for complex workflows and complex processes. It's really meant for very simple request or simple processes. So I think keeping it very simple. You saw this example earlier of basically you have just 3 options. I don't know who it is. I'm on my way, or I'll be there in a few minutes. By keeping it simple, you can still get the value of basically this. So if there's a customer that's on, in the front desk waiting for you, I've been in many buildings when I come and wait. I have no idea whether they're coming or what is going on. So I'm sitting there in the lobby and hoping that someone is coming soon. Whereas with this, so you can create a much better experience, but it's very simple. This is not very complicated of a process. So I think this is where basically like when you come from an enterprise application, then you're typically thinking of CRM applications. How do you manage your leads and opportunities? Or you're managing your invoice processes. That is some of the questions that's kind of been raised in the past. What bots does and what Facebook has done is basically creating a series of these very simple bots that solves your everyday kind of problem. So think of those kind of common questions. So for example, am I eligible to order a new laptop? Right? Let's say the policy, and Facebook's policy is very loose, but in many companies you can only order maybe every 2 years. So if you have that question, that may be a very common question that IT gets. So when you have that question, how would you solve that today? Well, typically you would send an email to IT. They would come back, respond back to you, hey, what's your serial number? And then basically it's a back and forth communication. A couple of days later, you have your answer. So it's a complicated kind of slow process. Imagine now if you have a bot, I know who you are. I know, if I know the serial number and when you got it, I can give you an answer right away. I don't have to wait. So many of these kind of simple questions can actually make, it removes like that effort of work both for IT as well as yourself was maybe 20, 30 minutes of work to actually get that answer. So that's wasted time that you could have actually spent on doing something much more useful. So I think solving many of these kind of simple problems can actually allow you to be much more efficient within the company, so because you are not bogged down with these kind of administrative questions or clarifications within the company. So I'm not going to drain this, but with custom integrations, there are really very few things you're not able to do. You can read, you can trigger, you can post, you can respond to posts, or you can respond to requests through work chat, or you can request information from a person using work chat. And this, on work chat, it's not just pure text in the samples that you've seen now. There are some simple buttons and some text, some chatbot basically. Within work chat, you can also basically embed much richer application. So it could have pictures, it could have some CSS programming, so that basically it looks like a real application that sits inside a work chat. It can also manage group accounts as well as group membership. So the question earlier about you may not have a single sign-on. There could be other options. If there is a directory where you have a list of all your employees, then you could use integration to basically activate, deactivate, invite, create, all through the APIs. Okay. So when you're building bots, you cannot, the complexity of bots is, it is not like a big ERP project, where in an ERP project you have maybe, it can be a 12-month project to implement a big system. Whereas these are very different in the sense that A bot you could build potentially in just a few hours. So, but you can't train now the whole company, every department within a company, to learn how to build bots. So you need some sort of centralized function within an organization that basically can control this. Because you don't want to make it too loose, so you end up with hundreds of different bots. Some maybe have the same purpose. So we recommend to have some sort of center of excellence where you can have someone internally that can basically help the different departments, like let's say HR, IT. They may not have the knowledge on how to build a bot, but they may have some ideas on how a bot could be used or could be built. So by having it somewhat centralized, the actual bot build, integrations could be still owned by the different IT departments. So prioritizing the high volume, simple requests. I read an article recently about HR. The typical person is working in HR spends about 30 to 40% of their time responding to some question from the user. Much of that information may be available on the internet. Could be some policy, could be a question about when is the next paycheck, what is a holiday schedule, many of these kind of simple questions. 30 to 40% of their time is spent on fielding such kind of simple questions. If a bot could take over that, I could really alleviate a lot of their time, and they can focus their work on more value-added work. We also believe that the integration to your various enterprise application should be standardized. Most companies have some sort of EAI platform that they're already using for web services within the company. It's important to try to standardize that integration so you don't go many different routes on how these bots are interacting. Another one is to leverage a bot platform. So there are multiple bot platforms that are supported on Workplace. I'll touch a little bit on that on the next slide and what that does. And I also believe that particularly those bots where the initiation is from the user, you don't want to have 15 different bots within HR for 15 different questions. Then people won't know which bot to call. So you want to try to minimize or basically consolidate to, let's say, an HR bot or an AP bot or a facilities bot, so that basically when I have a facilities problem, I know which bot I need to call. Okay, so here are some of the examples of some of the bot platforms. I'll touch on a bit what are they. So these bot platforms, this is all fairly new, but so far there are about 5 of them. There might be more by now, but at least as of right now, there's 5 of them that are integrated with Workplace. So what they do is they can build bots and integrations, standard integrations to many different applications. So they can be pre-built, so they have bots already. So for example, I think some of the Salesforce bots already, they're actually not built by Salesforce, they're built by some of these bot platforms. When you are building a chatbot, some of them basically are now so easy to build that it's really more of a configuration. We don't even need really an IT person to build them. You can basically configure a bot using some of these platforms. These also have pre-built natural language processing, so that basically when a user responds back yes, yeah, or ya, or yup, that basically the application knows that basically the answer to that all means yes. These platforms also have machine learning capabilities, so that basically as the bot is working and being used, it can improve over time. So that basically there's a continuous improvement in how the bot can chat and talk to people. Yeah. So I think many people are kind of confused, and this is a little bit IT-ish, I know. But a bot doesn't really sit on Workplace. It doesn't sit in Facebook. It is a registration in Facebook. So a bot is really a separate application. It sits somewhere else on a different server, which interacts with either Workplace or WorkChat through the integrations. That application can interact with any other application and can have any of this business logic within that application itself. But that's really how these are built. So yeah, I think keeping it simple, keep all messaging that you're doing very clear, crisp, don't get too funny, don't get too serious. Think about trying to keep it as simple and neat as possible. Incorporate buttons for binary or simple questions. I think all of these are kind of practices that basically is important to think about to make it as easy and simple for any user that first logs in. They should be intuitive enough for them to be able to use it the first time. Okay, okay. That's all I have.
If so, I'm assuming the bots developer is something that, let's say if we subscribe to Workplace, and we want to build bots, we can train our internal staff to build it. Yep. So is there like a license cost or something that's tied to that?
No, a bot a bot can be built really on different platforms, or you can build it on your own server, and basically you're leveraging the APIs, the integrations that Oracle, Workplace gives you. So there is a API which basically allows you to create a user. So you just have to have the logic within that to integrate and create the user. As long as you give that application the rights to do that, then basically Workplace will do it. Yeah, sure.
I have a question regarding cost. You said it's per user, $3 up to 200 and something users. But do we have a commitment, a time commitment? And to start it up, are there setup costs, or is this free?
So the setup is, I mean, as I talked about earlier, there, particularly depending on the size, there is a cost to implement unless you do it yourself, right? You can also do it yourself. In terms of the licensing cost of Workplace itself, it's very simple. It's $3 per user up to the first 1,000 of active users. The key word there is active. So if you have 5,000 users basically registered, and let's say only 400 of them are actually active on Workplace, then you're only paying for 400, even though 5,000 are actually, but that's not.
What's the definition of active? Means that they have used it?
Yeah, for that month. Within a month, they have
So they use it once, they're active?
They're active.
And no, but I'm saying to set up, is there any setup cost for a company? Or is it only users?
No, there's no setup cost to set up this application.
Nothing?
Nothing.
So I just subscribe the company and then I put in the users and you will charge according to the usage?
Yeah. I won't. Facebook will.
Okay.
It's about a cost question as well. How about the consultation fees? Is there any consultation fees?
Any what?
Consultation fees. They say we require, certain advice.
Yeah, implementation service. Implementation service is what we do. So yes, we don't make any money from Symprio on selling basically the subscription services. We make no money on that. Where we make money is helping companies to implement. So yes, we won't do it for free.
What is it? Yeah, what is the fees? What is the indicative fees?
We can talk about it separately, but I think it all depends. I mean, I think basically it all depends on the size and complexity and the seniority of people that we need on a project. If we're doing a project for, 50,000 people, we need some very senior people on the project. But if we're doing, and who will be more costly, Whereas if we're doing a project with 300-400 people, we can do it very quickly. It won't really cost that much, really. So, and we don't need that seniority in a team, right? So I can't give you know, here's the fixed price. There is, I mean, it all depends. Because we don't make any money on the, I need to pay my wife.
Okay, thanks.
It's an interesting point in regards to resell and fee for partners. We've actually steered way clear of this for many reasons. It would be very easy for companies to be resell partners for workplace and simply sell licenses and walk on. And there's no point in anyone doing that, because after 3 months, if you haven't understood the change management that needs to go underway, you'll walk away. So why bother having the conversation at all? So we actually don't in any way, shape or form feel that the resale model is the right one. The right one is utilising partners that understand organisational change and digital transformation and can help you run through that. So there are only very, very select cases that we actually do any resell around the world at this point in time. This model is the one that we like, because it means that we work with companies who know a heck of a lot more than we do in regards to organisational change management. Now, keep on going with the questions, but after you're done, I'm just going to run through. So there's been some questions in regards to certain features and the like, so I might just actually run through a demonstration for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Any other questions?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of company data running through Workplace, of course. So I have a question on what kind of encryption do you guys have, and who would hold the encryption key, the individual companies or Facebook?
So encryption key for the data itself, for your data?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this is actually one of the unique features of workplaces. We actually, the encryption, as this is a part of our wider platform, the encryption keys for workplace are widely owned by us. Now, we also don't store your data encrypted at rest. We do that specifically based off the way that the system works and the analysis that we're always doing on it. What I would say is, with a deeper conversation and with NDAs being signed, the level of detail that we can go to in regards to the way that we keep our global structure and service set secure has been able to convince every single company so far in Asia and nearly every company globally, based off the best practices that we run as a company to manage 2 billion people's data. Okay, so we actually do run quite differently. Now, again, as I mentioned before, I came from a background of starting the Amazon Web Services business, and I would say generally when using cloud vendors, the ability to encrypt data in transit and at rest makes a hell of a lot of sense, and it does. When we own all of our data centres, everything that sits within the Facebook network is a part of our construct. I would argue that potentially there are slight modifications to that statement that can be made, and for that one reason, we run in a different way. Look, we're a very unique company that way, but again, under NDA we can talk a lot more about how we do things in that structure.